Lego, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Both are pretty great, but what if we combine the two? Well, for a while now, that's what I've been working on. Maybe a year and a half ago, maybe even 2 years at this point, I don't know, time's hard. I tried to make some custom Lego JoJo's figures, and they're fine. They're not great. But in the last month or two, I've been planning out a much better, bigger set of JoJo's figures. How many do I mean by a bigger set? 90. That's right. I have picked 90 characters from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I'm working on Lego figures for all of them. Some are done, some are definitely not. And since today, March 19th, is the start of Steel Ball Run, we're going to go through the ones I've made for part 1 today. Because what better way to celebrate part 7 than by completely ignoring it and making Lego figures based on part 1. First up, we have Jonathan, the original JoJo, the main man himself, the most muscular of all. In my original Lego figure of Jonathan, I just sort of stole a torso from SpongeBob, which was blue with yellow arms and blue hands, because all of them were just yellow. But this time round, I wanted to make these figures better. So we're not doing any of these simple, easy yellow figures. So I took a different blue Lego torso and slapped some light nougat arms and hands on it. Now, I was just going to leave this torso like that. Just, we got the blue with the accurate arms, blah, 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 blah. But I wanted to make it slightly better. When Lego puts a design on PCs, they use pad printing. And I tried to do pad printing. I made some little stamps, I 3D modeled them, and then tried to print them out with my 3D printer, coat them in some resin so, they'd be like smooth, and then tried using ink and stamping it onto Lego PCs. That didn't really work. It was not the best way of doing things. So, since I can't print minifigures the way Lego does, I'm instead opting for stickers. And I use the term stickers quite loosely, because what I've actually done is design some decals for the figures on my computer, and then printed them out and cut them out, and I'm sticking them on the torsos. So for Jonathan, we've just gone with blue and sort of muscular outline, just like the pattern of the muscles, just on a slightly darker shade of blue. So now that we've got the torso, I'm going to put that on top of a pair of grey legs, because I'm going based off of this look, which has, the blue shirt with the short sleeves, or no sleeves, I guess, and the grey trousers. Technically, you should also have brown boots, but I didn't manage to procure half grey, half brown legs, so we're moving on. For the face, I just went with this one. It'll do. I'm not putting too much thought into the faces. I'm just going for something that makes sense, just as long as it's somewhat accurate. It's difficult to get the heads. I've been struggling with that part a lot. So we're just going with the closest we can get. Don't worry if they're not perfect. And now we get to the part of this figure that really threw me. See, initially I'd planned on using blue hair for Jonathan, because he's depicted with blue hair in the anime. But none of the blue hair pieces that I tried for him really looked good. They were just slightly off. I couldn't get anything good in blue. So I thought, right, we'll go to black, because the blue is meant to be black, right? I feel like a lot of the time they use sort of bluey tones in JoJo's and even some other anime that are meant to be black. So I thought, see, I tried out a couple different black hairs and still it didn't look perfect. So I thought, right, I'm going to look at my official JoJo's action figures, I'll have a look at the Super Action Statues one, and see what colour hair they gave Jonathan. And it's brown. I always thought that the blue hair was meant to be black. Apparently not. I looked on the JoJo's wiki and a couple other things, checked out some sources. Apparently it's always blue or brown. So ultimately I decided we'll just give Jonathan brown hair. And this is the hairpiece I went with. It's not perfect, but it's close enough. And to finish off Jonathan, we have to give him a couple of accessories. So I went with some brown shoulder armour, a backpack, and a sword. So our finished product for Jonathan looks like this. I feel like looking at it, when you've got the blue sleeveless shirt with the muscles and stuff, and the sword and the shoulder pads, I feel like you can tell it's meant to be Jonathan Joestar. It's not perfect, but I do think it's really good. Up next, we're going to do the father of Jonathan Joestar, Mr. George Joestar. Now, here's the thing. I gave Jonathan brown hair, so I'm sticking with the same for George. He's getting brown hair as well, but slightly darker brown. Specifically, I'm going with this piece. And then I put that hair on top of this mustached face, and then put that on top of this black suit, which I had to replace the hands on because the hands on the version I had were white, so I had to take them out, put some more accurate hands on. And then finally we just finished them off with some black legs. And there we have it. There is George Joestar. That was quite a quick one, wasn't it? Moving on to my favourite character from part 1, and if he's not yours, you're objectively wrong. Robert E.O. Speedwagon, the GOAT himself, fiction's greatest love interest. I don't care about her. For Speedwagon, I decided to take the torso and legs from the same figure, specifically this figure of Grindelwald, the one that came in the Coach Escape set thing. I can't remember the exact name of it. Personally, I think this suit goes quite well for Speedwagon. I like how it looks. And yeah, obviously I went for the parts from the same figure so that it would connect and it looks better. I suppose I could technically have created another little decal thing to put on Speedwagon, but I don't want to do that for every figure, just the ones that I feel need it. Also, as you'll find out later in this series of videos I'm doing, I definitely put a lot more effort into decals for the parts that I like more. Kind of went a bit overboard for part 5. So now that we've got Speedwagon's torso and legs, I'm going to slap that face on him, and we're going to finish him off with his hair. Now, initially I did have a sort of thing of, do I give him a top hat? Do I give him a bowler hat? Do I just give him hair? I went with the hair. I gave him some nice long hair in an accurate blonde colour. This is the one that I went with. However, I took a bowler hat piece and put a little stud inside it and gave that to him as an accessory. So he's got the hair and the bowler hat, because it makes sense to have him holding the bowler hat since he does use it as a weapon that one time. Now, I also decided to give Speedwagon one other accessory, and that is the sledgehammer that he uses to smash the stone mask. Spent a little bit of time in like a design phase, sort of going through different pieces that would work well. This is the design that I eventually used. Here's the pieces you need to make it, and yeah, that's what the finished one looks like. I'm pretty happy with it. It's maybe like slightly too big for the figure, but it's fine. It looks good. Up next, we're going to go with Jonathan's supposed love interest, who, in my opinion, is not as good a love interest for him as Speedwagon was, but it's too late to do something about that now. For Arena, we're going to start off by once again stealing the torso and lower body from the same Harry Potter figure. And by that I mean the two pieces are from the same figure, not that we're using Grindelwald for Arena. No, this time round we're using Dumbledore, specifically the version of Dumbledore that came in the first collectible minifigure series for Harry Potter. I really struggled to find reference images, which I thought was odd, so I rewatched part 1. Turns out she's really not in it a lot. She is a minor character. I think even Dyer and Straightso have more screen time than she does. Anyway, on top of that torso and skirt piece thing, I added this face, which I think's fairly accurate, you know, sort of friendly smile. And finally, I gave her the hair that they used for the Elsa figure. In my opinion, that hair actually looks really accurate. Although, I have fallen into a slight problem with this figure, because the finished thing does just look like it's meant to be Elsa, because I've used Elsa's hair combined with the light blue thing from Dumbledore. Doesn't matter, JoJo's predates Frozen, so it's not my fault, and it's not the fault of JoJo's, it's the fault of Disney. Or maybe Pixar. Who made that film? Anyway, to finish off Arena, we're going to give her this piece, which is supposed to be a cast. Now at first that might seem weird. Why would I give the cast to Arena? Isn't it Jonathan that breaks his arm or something? Well, despite the fact that this piece is supposed to be a cast to go on someone's broken arm, Lego has used it as a cloth. Specifically, it was used in Lego Ninjago City Markets, where Dareth holds it as a little cloth for, you know, wiping down the bar while talking to his customers, I guess. So I've used this piece in the same way for Irina to reference that scene where she's dealing with Jonathan's burns and laying wet cloths all over him or something. And that's Irina finished. So now we move on to my second favourite character from part 1, after Speedwagon, of course. Baron Zeppeli. Now, of course, for Zeppeli, we have to give him the top hat. I was going to go with a little top hat piece, and I thought, nah, that's not good enough for Zeppeli. So we're going with the big top hat piece. And that top hat is going to be resting on a mustached face, obviously. And since I do really like Zeppeli, and I really struggled to find a white suit, I decided that Zeppeli would be one of the ones to get a custom decal on the figure. This is the little design I made. I basically just used this version of Moon Knight, the version of him that's like in a suit. I used that as sort of a starting off point and just mixed up the colours and edited the design a little bit to create the design for Zeppeli. And then we just put some white legs under that torso, and of course we have to give him a wine glass because of that weird scene in the tunnel where he's got the wine. So this is what our finished Zeppeli looks like. Really happy with this one. Glad that I decided to go with a custom print. And we're coming to the end of the first video with the figures from part 1. But we've got one figure left. The main antagonist, Dio. I don't like Dio's final look in part 1. To be clear, when I say his final look, I mean the red outfit, not the head in a jar. So, just off of personal preference and availability of pieces, I decided to go with a younger Dio. So, I gave him blue trousers and this blue suit piece, which I think is fairly accurate to the kind of suit that he wears in the show. The tie's the wrong colour, but it's a tie. People change their ties all the time. You get different colours of tie. The tie doesn't matter, right? And then, since it's Dio, who's, you know, Dio, I gave him this very angry looking face and this sort of slicked back, sort of slightly spiked up blonde hair. And finally I gave Dio a knife, because he always has a knife. If you come face to face with Dio and you think he ain't got a knife, you go and get stabbed. So this is our finished Dio figure, based off of the young Dio look in the show. I think this is better than my failed attempts to make the older version of Dio, which I'm not even going to get into how bad those figures looked, but they weren't great. Did I say that was the final one? Oh man. I've still got one left, which I may have forgotten about. But that's because he's a very forgettable character, who I only included in this because he does return in part 2, and I needed one last 7 figure to round up part 1. And that, of course, is Straightso. For Straightso, I went with these black legs, a black torso. Then I had an idea. See, I was already printing out the decals to go on the figures, and I thought, what if I try to print out one of like the cloak pieces that Lego uses? See, usually they're made of fabric or whatever, but some of the older ones are a bit more like paper, and I thought maybe I could just like print it out and then put that around him, because he needs a cloak, but I didn't have the right type of sort of cape cloak thing to finish him off. So I printed one out. Then we used this face for Straightso. Why do I keep saying we? I'm one person. And finally, finish him off with this black hair. So this is what the finished Straightso figure looks like. Personally, I think he's alright. You can tell that it's meant to be Straightso within the context of the other figures. So these are all the finished figures. These are the 7 that I made based on part 1. If you think these are cool, let me know in the comments. If there's anything you would have done differently, feel free to say that in the comments as well. If you want to see the rest of the figures I make, then you should like and subscribe, and I highly recommend it. Because if you've actually watched this, then you like Lego and you like JoJo's. And some of the figures that are going to be later in this series are way better than the ones that I made today. I think I've really stepped up the level with each sort of lot that I've made. Next time we'll be moving on to part 2. Which will have 8 figures, one more than this time. Each subsequent video from there will be a bit longer, actually a lot longer, because from part 3 onwards we're doing 15 figures per video. So each part from 3 through to 6 is going to have 15 figures each, and then we're going to have a final 15 figures covering the parts that haven't been animated yet. because there's fewer characters there that I care about. So make sure you stay tuned for those subsequent videos, because we're going to make something pretty cool here. Thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and enjoy part 7. Goodbye.